Let me go live here. Okay, good morning. So in Ayin Beis, volume 3, on page 1305. Being that it's coming just in a few days from now, the Rebbe's 120th birthday. And last night I gave a talk, which was streamed online. You could see it. And so I was just going to add a point that in Purim 1983, to show you, it complements the story I told about this. The chair, the person may be small, but the chair is large. The seat, the position is a large one. So in 1983 on Purim, the Rebbe, again, uncharacteristically, it's called a rare moment, spoke a little from his heart about what he sometimes struggles with. And he said the following. He said, at times you wonder, I'm just summarizing it and paraphrasing it. Sometimes one wonders if they're doing the right thing or not. And he didn't say it immediately, but as throughout the talk, it became clear what he was referring to. What was he referring to was that, he says, instead of everybody coming to hear one person speak at a Farbrengen, referring to himself as the Rebbe, they could all stay at home. Each person could sit and open up a Chumash, a Gemara, a Chassidus, and learn on their own. Why bother everybody to come listen to one person? So the Rebbe said he was wondering whether he's doing the right thing or not by making the Farbrengen. And the Rebbe said, so how do you find a resolution? You ask the Rebbe. So he says, there's indeed a story that happened with the Alter Rebbe, that the Alter Rebbe was once in his house together with his wife, and he sees out the window, he sees Chassidim are coming. They're coming to hear something from him. And as they get closer, he goes over and is about to close the curtains and lock the door. And he says, what do they want from me? What do they want from me? The Rebbe said these words. The Rebbetzin, the Alter Rebbe's wife, realized that she better do something here to have a good ending, a happy ending. So she says to the Alter Rebbe, her husband, she says, they want to hear what your Rebbe has to say. You hear? They want to hear what dein Rebbe hat zu sagen, meaning the Maggid of Mezrich. So the Alter Rebbe said, I'll say it in Yiddish, if that's the case, will ich sagen und sagen, then I'll say and I'll say. And he opened the door and they all came in and it was Pasha Kisove. He said a Torah. They came to hear some Chassidus. So the key was that he was humble. He said, they're coming to hear me. They want to hear what my Rebbe has to say. I'll say and I'll say. He won't stop speaking. So the Rebbe said, the Alter Rebbe said it out of humility. The same Alter Rebbe that writes on the cover page of Tanya, he writes that it's mipi sofrim, mipi sefrim, as if mipi sefrim, mipi svarim, mipi sefrim, as if the whole Tanya is just some type of compendium from different books and different writers. When the Tanya is filled with Chiddush, never, that Rebbe said, today we don't need humility. Even though the Rebbe was using the same humility, he's saying, so that's how he resolved the question. He says, because I'm not saying what I'm saying. I had the opportunity to sit by my father-in-law and hear. So I'm repeating what I heard from my Rebbe. And that's why there's a Farbrengen. It was just very, I was very taken by that. Because look, the Rebbe is a true person, MS. He wasn't just being humble. He completely recognized that all he is a channel for what comes before. And that makes him even greater, as I shared yesterday. So I just thought I'd throw that in. It's a beautiful piece from Purim, 1983. You could hear the Rebbe say it. It's a beautiful, beautiful piece. What do you think? Pretty powerful, huh?
Amazing. I'm posting a link to your speech last night on the WhatsApp thread for all the students in the class. And it's difficult to get to write to your speech because the video is owned by Chabad.org. It's not on YouTube. But I can tell everybody you need to advance the cursor to timestamp 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 15 seconds. And I'll put that in the WhatsApp thread. But you don't have to listen to all the other speakers. You could just move the video forward to 1 hour, 13 minutes, and 15 seconds.
Okay. Thank you. That's good to know. Yeah, Chabad, yeah, they don't. I don't think they have a time stamps like that. Yeah. Okay. So with that said, let's learn what the Rebbe has to say. Right, the Rebbe Rashab. So I did a little research, and I'll sum up what I learned yesterday. Let's first sum up what we're learning here. So we're talking about Malchus. We're on page 1305 in Ayin Beis, volume 3. Malchus, on one hand, is the lowest level of the spheres that descends into Biyah, into the lower worlds, from Atzilus into the lower worlds. And yet, like a corner point, it has no space of its own. It only connects, but that connection demonstrates that its power is coming from a place that's higher than all the spheres. Like you said, Radlah, Malchus, the Ein Sof. And that's the Keren, by Yoram Keren Meshiche, that is ultimately the ultimate purpose of the elevation of Malchus all the way up to the Helam Atzmi, which will be when Mashiach comes. Yoram Keren Meshiche. Whereas today, Malchus is more of a makabel, a recipient, like the moon. It's receiving energy, like a student. But then it has something from the etzem that's even greater than the giluyim of the teacher, so to speak, of the mashpia and the hashpas and all the transmissions that come from higher levels. So clearly we need both. We need the giluyim, and we need, first the student has to be trained. Malchus needs to be empowered. And then it reveals, then you can reveal within it its atzmis de kekayach. That sums up pretty much a lot of what we've been learning in this volume 3 and the whole process of ultimately that type of highest elevation. Now, the Rebbe Rashab is now explaining it in the context of the conversation between Yonason and David that we say in the Haftarah of Mocha Chodesh from Shmuel Aleph. So briefly summing up, what did Yonason say to David? Remember, David is Malchus of Atzilus, and Yonason says to him, "V'shilashta tered me'ed." That for 3 days you will descend further and further. So the Rebbe Rashab says, what is that referring to? What's the 3 and what's the descent? So the descent is Malchus going into Biyah. He doesn't say it explicitly, but you can almost say that the 3 is like the 3 levels of Biyah. Pri, Yitzir, Asiyah. But he doesn't say it explicitly here. I have to look again in the source if it says it there. But regardless, the Shelashta also refers to the Aliyah, the Segel, Vayisim Lisgula, which refers to what's the point of going down into Biyah, Bein Ha'amim, Shal Pnei Adama, that refers to the work, the hard work of Birurim, of refining the negative characteristics and emotions of the Umazeh, of the other side, namely, like he said, Chesed and Gvura. He only mentions Yishmael, but it's also Esav, as I'll point out that this whole piece, the Maimer I mentioned yesterday, this is literally a cut and, I don't say cut and paste, but it's literally a hataki. He's almost word for word from the Tzemach Tzedek's Maimer Vayemer LeYenason in Eira Teira Breishis, where there's a little more elaboration there. I'll point it out shortly, but first I want to sum it up. So it's taking the Amim rather, Yishmael and Esav, the main primary nations, Chesed and Gvura of Klippa, and refining it. How do you refine it? That's what Malchus does. Remember, Malchus joins and unites Biyah, even the lowest levels, with Atzilus through Bittul. And that's the Segel. That's the Vishalashtem, the 3. Chesed and Gvura is the 1 dot, the 2nd dot, and the lower dot is the Bittul of Malchus. And that Bittul has the power to transform and cause that the Bittul Atzmi that causes that instead of Midas Rois, negative characteristics, Chesed and Gvura that are selfish, like he described in detail, it should be selfless Chesed and Gvura from Kedusha and holiness coming with Bittul, the Chesed and Gvura that he described, that are all about Hashpah, about giving with intensity, and the details we learned already. I'm not going to go through the exact details of Chesed and Gvura. And then he concluded in the paragraph on page 1305, which is what I wanted to elaborate on. And then he says, "Umasegel nasa skulosa, shehi shanakudi lamayla al gabe beis hanakudis." And that, in other words, once you have this bittul, what happens? Then that elevates the lowest levels to go all the way up to the Nakuda that Malchus is rooted in a Nakuda that's higher than Chesed and Gvura. It begins with that it descends below and it's refining Chesed and Gvura as it is in the world below and beyond. But ultimately that Nakuda goes and becomes the Nakuda that's higher. And that's why Yisem is Gula B'chinas Gulasa, Shai De'abir B'chalam Nasim B'chinas Gula. So in other words, it's not just that we refined these emotions, you actually elevate everything to a higher level. So as I said, this is pretty much almost word for word from the Maimer Tzemach Tzedek in Eira Teira Breishis, which you can look up. I looked it up. And there and a few other places. And indeed, as we discussed yesterday, there's a Zohar that speaks about segel and skulosa, that there is a segel that's dot with a dot below it, and there's a segel, an upside down segel that we would consider dot, and the point is on top, and that's called skulosa. So there are two levels of segel, and there are some places in the Torah where the segel is upside down in that sense. I don't want to say upside down because I don't know if it's upside down. It's just that the Nakuda, the bittul of Malchus goes all the way at top, which is the elevation that he's referring to here. So I did look up, and there is indeed those two levels, and that's what he's referring to as Gulosa, Segel. I did not find anything about the Segoil or Segel that Yurab Shlomo referred to. That I did not see, but this is I did find. It does also discuss, interestingly, what's the difference between Segel makes a word like what does he say it is a malupum. There's three dots that go down one after the other. That's not that's u, right?
Shuruk.
Shuruk. Yes, that's a shuruk. What's a malupum?
Melupum. Yeah, melupum is three dots, and shuruk is a vav and a dot in middle.
And both of them turn the word. Shuruk makes the word like oi.
No.
That's
no. Both are sounding the same.
What do they sound like? U?
U. Cholam makes it a oi.
Cholam is oi, right. And melupum and the shuruk make it what? Not u?
U. U, yeah.
U. Okay, so maybe I'm confusing it. Because segel is definitely
Yes.
Okay, fine.
The only thing is that I said it yesterday, segel is having a cholam in the middle.
I know, that's what you said. Then there's segel. But I didn't find that point discussed in this context. That's all I'm saying.
I never heard segel until I see that Rabbi Rashab is writing the Yehonos said to David segel, but then he's saying segoil top. Segulo, to. Maybe they're putting the cholam.
But maybe he's supposed to not read segel. Maybe he's supposed to read segoil. What do you know? Just because he doesn't use a vav.
Supposed to be segoil, 100%.
Okay, fine. Okay. Anyway, that's what I wanted to fill in. One more thing. Remember, I wondered whether gvuris gashmim or gvuris kshamim. In the Tzemach Tzedek, it's gvuris kshamim, as I had suggested, not gvuris gashmim. So there's an expression gvuris kshamim, which means
this is very interesting. Here it says
the intensity of the rain,
and it also fits more here. Gvuris gashmiyim.
Yeah, but it looks like that in Tzemach Tzedek for sure is gvuris kshamim, and I said I'd look up the Ksavya Rabbi Rashav. I didn't look it up yet. Okay, let's continue the summary. Then the next paragraph, he continues with the conversation with the words of Yonason to David. That then he said after that, so that's v'shelashta teirish yeridas hamachs l'matamat levaridus. And then he says v'yashafta eitzel even hazel, that you will sit near this even hazel. What is this ezel? So he says it comes from the word ozal, azlinan minei. That through the birurim, the neshama everything becomes in a state of movement, hiluch. So he explains, Evan, first of all, refers to daimim, it's the lowest level, the stone, the most inanimate. So that refers to Evan, he calls that Malchus of Asiya. That's Evan. and the birur of that lowest level, and that is dependent Mashiach's coming. Because the Tanoim and Amirayim, they covered Bria and Yetzirah. So even though they were greater, where our generation is not that fitting, Otu Achshadara, but the birur Dafka, but their birur was in Bria and Yetzirah. And Dafka Lamata, today the birurim in Elam Asiyah, meaning the level of Evan, the stone, Sukkah's David HaNefelas, the home, the abode, the Sukkah of David that has fallen, like Yerdis, the end of the birurim of that, and that is dependent, that it will be, right? And that explains the Azal. What's the Azal? Because Azal is the inyan of Hiluch va'aliyah b'yeser, it comes minei dafke. It comes dafke from within. When you enter into the world of Daimim, of Evan, into the world where it's the divine is concealed, and you have to contend with Chesed and Gvura of Klippa and Umazeh, from minei azlinon, that's the Evan Azal, from that elevate. That's what Yonason is hinting to by saying that you will sit at the Evan Azal because you'll elevate and cause that movement, that Hiluch and Aliyah, to that highest level. Okay, next section. Then now one more thing that Yonason said to David. He said, as a sign, I will shoot 3 arrows in the air. What does that refer to? So the Rebbe Rashabak brings from the Arizal, that the 3 arrows refers to also the keshes, the 3 colors, the 3 primary colors of a rainbow, which is also a bow, rainbow. So bow and arrow, it also looks like a bow. And that's what Yonason is referring to. What are the 3 colors? He says that's birurim, as I discussed yesterday. He says here like this. He says that the birurim, and he brings from the Zohar. The Zohar says that Mashiach will come, or don't wait Mashiach until after Mashiach's coming. Will come only after a keshes will appear in the sky and will illuminate and shine in its colors, begavne nehirin, v'yisnar la'alma, and illuminate, shine in the world. What's the connection? So you see from this that keshes is the birurim, that's what Mashiach is dependent. Why does Mashiach need to wait till after a rainbow? Because the rainbow refers to the birurim that the Yonason is talking about. The birurim that the Evna Ezel, that through that, the birurim, when we go down to this world, more than the Tanoim Amirayim, we have the power to refine existence, and through that comes Mashiach. So Mashiach, as a result, Keshes, refers to the birurim. I explained a bit that it comes after the Mabul, which of course came as a result of all the crime and pollution of the world. The Hainu, he said, Shabirurim b'chinas Malchus yeiru b'chinas er atzmi. That's where we stopped. That the birurim and Malchus, which are all in the lowest level, they will ultimately, when Mashiach comes, will radiate with an er atzmi, which is higher than a regular light. So the keshes and its colors represent a light that's even deeper. It's a light that comes from darkness. Okay. Which of course is consistent, as we shall see, with all the Yoram, Kerem, Mashiach, everything we've been talking about, that it's not just, it's the Laila Kayom Yoyer, that darkness itself will be illuminated. He'll be saying that shortly. Because now, as I said, he's going to tie together literally everything we learned in the last 20, 30 pages. But there's a little more about the keshes, about the rainbow that the Rebbe Rashab wants to add. So let's continue learning the next Zohar. So he says, Sham Daf Ayin Aleph. So the Zohar he quoted was Daf Ayin Beis, Ahmed Beis, 72b. He says the Rebbe Rashab continues, and the line begins, the Alma, page 1305 in Ayin Beis. You could follow these pages if you want to follow the text in ayinbeis.com. The PDFs of these pages are there. He says earlier in the Zohar, a page earlier, in Daf Ayin Aleph Ahmed Beis, 71b, Al posik as kashti nasati. So it says as kashti, my rainbow, I will place in the b'shamayim as ba'anon, in the cloud in heaven. That's when God says, that's the covenant, the bris, that will reflect my promise that will no longer be a flood. So the Rebbe says, the Eibishter says, as kashti, my keshes, I will place. He doesn't say the ba'anon. So the Zohar says, my kashti. What does it mean, my rainbow? It should have just said keshes, the rainbow. What does it mean, God's rainbow? So he says, kamoy the amrinon, vateshev be'eson kashte. The Zohar compares it to what it says in the pasuk. I'm not sure where the pasuk is. Vateshev, we have a resident expert, Baki in Tanakh. Where's vateshev be'eson kashte?
That's a bracha that Yaakov gave Yosef before he passed away.
Oh, right. I was thinking in Nach. You're right, in Vayechi. So he says, "Vatesha be'eson kashte." Now, of course, there are many meanings to that. So the Zohar is explaining it in this way. Kashte means v'yadua, he says, and it's known. So literally, the verse means that vatesha be'eson. So be'eson, he's going to explain what means be'eson. Be'eson means in your strength. Be'eson can mean also old age. Kashte, I think in the pasuk, literal meaning in the pasuk is kashte, your be'eson, I will place be'eson. Anyone has a chumash in English? How does he translate kashte there? Okay, let's see how he touches it up in Chassidus here. So he says like this: V'yadua, the eson hu b'chinas Penimiyus Atik. Eson is the level of Penimiyus Atik, the inner dimension of wisdom of Chachma. V'hainu, what does that mean? B'chinas Penimiyus Atik shabai. So Eson, sometimes Eson, we say Eson ha'azrachi, or the Alter Rebbe has a Torah that Eson has three meanings. And one of them is that it means like a rock, a solid rock that is unwavering, an unbelievable power. So Eson is that, like the Eson of the Neshama. So it's referring to, he says, the level of Penimiyus Chachma, which means the Penimiyus Atik within Chachma. So it's a very high level of revelation, of Elokus. Like it says elsewhere. So therefore, when he says Vatesha be'eson kashte, that they will place Vatesha, no, not place. The Vatesha that he will settle, he will place be'eson kashte is referring to the level of Eson Penimiyus Atik. So here's how the Rebbe Rashab continues. V'zeu dischazi keshes begavnin nehirin. And that's the meaning, what it says in the Zohar that he quoted before from the next page, that it will be seen, a keshes will be seen, begavnin nehirin, in its shining colors, glowing colors, the hainu gili b'chinas Penimiyus Atik. So that's the meaning of kashti. It's not just a rainbow. It's God's rainbow. It's reflecting the highest levels of Elokus, all the way in Penimiyus Atik. So as kashti in the Satan, my kashti, Vatesha be'eson kashti. It's referring to the level of Penimiyus Atik, this level of keshes. How it fits with the blessing to Yosef, I have to look up inside the pasuk.
He said that kashtoi is loshen poizek, but his strength was in Eson. The Onkelos is saying that Hashem made his nevius strong because of the kayem oiraiso. No, this is the other targum. Onkelos said the Shavi took for its strength.
Okay, I thought so. I said strength, yeah. What does Rashi say? Okay, doesn't matter, fine. Anyway, what he's adding now is that this is the level of Penimiyus Atik, and we know earlier we learned Malchus is rooted in Penimiyus Atik. So let's continue here. Another thing that Eson hints to the future. But Esis Eson Mishamshus La'osid. When you say the letters Eson, because of the Aleph, is Meshamshis La'osid, Shezeu Amitis Agili de La'osid, Bezman Atchia. Sheyeh Gili B'chinis Penimiyus Atik. So there are words, like for example, when you say Oz Yosher Moshe. So the question is, what do you mean Yosher? Should say Shar. Oz Shar, Moshe sang. Say Yosher sounds like La'osid, that he will sing. So there are letters in Hebrew that turn a word into a futuristic, into the future. So there it talks about from there, Oz Yosher, that we're talking about the Shiur and with the Khan, we learned Chiyas HaMesim from the Torah, because he's also, there'll be a song sung later in the future. Eson too, I think it's I'm not sure which letter, but the word Eson is also one that refers to like a future, that it will be so. I think in the post, I'm trying to say, maybe in, what did I say? Hamaskil Eson Hazrachi. I don't know if it's there. I have to look it up in the Maimorim where it talks about Eson, that Eson's Meshamshis La'osid. Anyway, what it's referring to, therefore, is the real Gilui of Penimiyus Atik will be...
You have the Aleph. A lot of times when you have the Aleph, it makes it La'osid.
Right. Right. Like, for example, sometimes it's a Yud, and sometimes it's an Aleph. The thing is, what would the word sound like if you don't have an Aleph? I have to look it up. Let me look it up. There are some places that discuss this in detail. Anyway, regarding to our connection here, it's referring to the mitis agili in the time of Chiyas HaMesim. What will be the gili? Sheyagili b'chinas Penimiyus Atik v'yagili lamata. The revelation of Penimiyus Atik and below. To get beyond all the so-called esoteric bottom line here is this: that when Yonason said he's going to shoot, the 3 arrows from his bow, what he says, the expression here, he's referring to also, just like Malchus is elevating the lowest levels all the way to the highest, and that will be in the future, that will cause Mashiach to come, the end of the Birurim. So the arrows too, that was what will come afterwards. What Yonason is saying, there'll be the revelation of Penimiyus Atik, which is the revelation of the bow of the rainbow, as we call it, the rainbow, and that's Kashtei Eson Penimiyus Atik that will be revealed La'osid. Okay, so basically the words of Yonason to David are all alluding to the Birurim down to the lowest levels, to elevate it to the highest levels that will be after Mashiach comes and Chiyas HaMesim, the Gilia Penimiyus Atik, which is Kashti, my rainbow. It, in other words, reflects godliness itself, the highest levels of godliness. And that's what it means that you'll see the Keshes and Gun in the Hayden. So I guess it means that David will see the result of his work, because he'll look up and he'll see 3 arrows flying in the sky. Like he says, Ba'era, Chitzim Sida Eira, because they're being shot. That will reflect that you finished the work that you needed to do down below, which is why you went there for those 3 days. I'm just spelling it out even more specifically. So Yonason, David refers to Malchus. I think in the Maimon in Tzemach Tzedek in Eira Teira, I think he says Yonason is Yud K, Yud K Vov, which is the 3 higher levels in Atzilus, with Malchus being, so Yud K Vov is like Chachma, Bina, and Zah, and that will then so-called respond and show that you've done your Birurim, and look, here you see, just like you see a rainbow in the sky, you see the bow, the arrows that I shot, means the Gili of Penimiyus Atik that you've achieved through your Birurim. That's just spelling out even more exactly what Yonason was telling David. So next time you hear this Haftarah, you have what to think about. Not just some type of technical sign, he's shooting arrows and David is hiding. It's all referring to the big Aved. And I remember David was hiding because of Shaul. It was because there was danger to his life. So it was a real difficult and a dangerous situation. Ultimately, he would return. So this is the conversation. Yonasan and David is about how going down a descent to the lowest levels, but with the goal of elevating it all to the highest point of the through Birurim to all the way to Penimiyus Atik, which is hinted to in the Keshes, in the rainbow.
This is also giving a fascinating explanation about the love between Yonasan and David.
Yeah.
That Yonasan needs the Malchus in order to be the Gilui Le'osim.
Yeah. Correct. So now that we covered that, which goes back to what we learned earlier, the whole descent. Let me just go back to refresh my memory. That Malchus, so now we've learned how Malchus is the connector. Remember, he said two ways it connects, through creation, but more importantly, the Ikaris Chabrus of the corner point from Keren Zavis, Malchus, is connecting and elevating the bittul and elevation of Biyah all the way to the level of Elikus and Atzilus and higher. That's what we learned. The Rebbe Rashab is now going to go back. If you remember, go back to the bottom of page 1301, 4 pages ago, and he said there were 4 meanings in the word Keren. One was V'yodam Keren Meshichei, what we just discussed now for the last 4 pages, the corner point that connects two realities. There's no chiddush there, but it's a connector, and that connection is even deeper than each level on its own. Now he's going to go back to the other interpretations of Keren. This is the connection. If I was involved in the publishing, I would have made a new paragraph here, because this indeed is a new section after you finish that. So, but right now he continues the next line. V'zeh Keren loshen oyer. So let's go back just to refresh our memory at the bottom of 1301. If you look, he said there are 4 interpretations. One was Teike v'chezik, strength and intensity. 2, loshen etzem, the core essence of something. 3, Keren oyer, loshen zoyer v'oyer. That's on top of page 1302. Like Keren oyer pnei Moshe. That Moshe's, the skin of Moshe's face was shining. And 4 was Keren Zavi, is the corner. So until now, we've only explained the 4th one. Now he's going to go back and say, now we can understand the meaning and the connection to the other meanings in the word Keren. That's why it's definitely a new, this should not be just a flowing straight from the story with Yonasan and David. V'zeh Keren loshen oyer. And this is also when we say Keren from the word oyer. So Keren can mean a lot of things, and one of them is it also means rays of light. Karnei Heid. So like a ray of light that shined from Moshe's face. The Hainu Shebchina. So what is the connection?
Kehos.
Because when
Kehos, Karnei Hoid Toiro.
Right. The ray of light. What's the connection here? Malchus, as we learned before, is fundamentally dark place. That connection to Hainu Shebchinas Malchus Yeh Bechinas Kiron Oyer. Because Malchus, once it's elevated, in itself will shine with this unique light, like we just said, the light of the rainbow. Ukamay Kiron. Why does he use Kiron here? Kaf Yud Reish Vav Nun. Is that how you pronounce it? Not Keren.
What?
He spells it Keren. He spells Kuf Yud Reish Vav Nun. Kirun.
Yes.
Will
Kirun
become
means shine. Kirun is shine. Kirun oil.
So why do you think that, like the Pasuk says Kuf Reish Nun? Why do you need the Yud in the Vav?
Kirun Meloshen Oval.
No.
Oh.
Kirun is the hoiver, the action. It's not only the shine. The shine is shining now. This is Kirun.
The shining, not just the shine. I got it. Yeah.
By the way,
Okay.
man, I don't know if you paid attention to what I said before. On every book from the Babich it said Hitzoas Karnei Hoid Toiro Kehos.
Yeah, of course. I heard what you said. That comes from the Karnei. The name comes from the Pasuk about Moshe. Yeah, Karnei, the rays of light of Torah. Yeah, I heard. Okay, so Kamoy Kirun Eir Pnei Moshe, the shining and glow of the skin of the face of Moshe. His face was glowing. Shehoya ma'luchas achrenis. That came from the luchas achrenis. It came from the descent. It wasn't after the luchas hashenis. It wasn't after the first tablets. It came after they built the Chet Egel, after the sin of the golden calf, and Moshe prayed for them, and gained tshuva and forgiveness. Salachti kidvarecha, and he received the second luchas in Yom Kippur. That's when he got this glow. So we see that this glow is not just regular light; it's a light that follows a very dark state. These luchas achrenis gave the power in order to refine even a negative situation with the power of Torah. In other words, why, when God said to him tshuva, okay, should have accepted the tshuva, the forgiveness, and that's it. No, but it had to manifest itself in Torah, because Torah gives the power to refine. So it wasn't just enough tshuva. He gave him a second set of luchis, which in many ways is like the luchis of tshuva imposed to the luchis of tzaddikim, the first luchis, the first tablets which were given by Shavuos, the Matan Torah. She says, Kenoid, as it's known, and explained elsewhere, and he cites also Commission is Barliel, Dibra Maskal Breshis Habeis. And as was explained earlier, in the Maimer in volume 2, the second Breshis, he refers to in the bottom of the footnote, page 1177. I don't remember that. That's what he said. I got to look it up. Okay. So now that brings in the second interpretation of Malchus from Eir, Keren Eir. Good. V'hainu. Now he's going to connect this light, the rays of light, together with the first interpretation, or the fourth interpretation that it means corner point. V'hainu, and this means shaydeha keren de b'chinas Malchus, through Malchus as a corner, hamachaberes nivroim imelakus, that joins and unites the creations with godliness, like we learned before. That they should be in a state of utter selflessness and utter sublimation, instead of being a yesh and focused on self. That the Malchus transforms them into Elokus, as we said, because Malchus itself is a state of Ayin. So it takes the yesh and turns it into Ayin. So Malchus as a corner point, that brings on Nase b'chinas kirun eir shugili da atzmus ein shof shalamayla b'chinas atzilus. That brings a radiating light, a rays of light of gili of atzmus and so that's higher than atzilus. Gam b'chinas sheidish da atzilus the klolus shebe'ein ein sof shalifnei atzimtzum. Not only higher than atzilus, that's after the tzimtzum in microcosm, but also higher than the root of atzilus, the macrocosmic Atzilus before the Tzimtzum, because it's going all the way to the Helam Atzmi. Atzilus, the Klolos, is still the world of the 10 hidden spheres, which means the spheres are there, but there's no real substance. But it's not Helam Atzmi. It's Alakus. It's Eir. And here we're reaching a place that's even higher than that Atzilus, the Klolos. It's the first time he said that explicitly, but he said it basically earlier. V'hainu. Because now Malchus is radiating with a new type of light, a light that can only come from a dark place, from going down low below. So the Keren Malchus as being a corner point that connects the creation to godliness, the second part of this Chabus, not the process of creating, but the process of elevating. That brings on the second interpretation of Malchus being Keren Eir, a light that comes from the level of Helam Atzmi. Okay.
So all the four Pirushim in Keren, they are connected. Now it's clear.
He's going to connect the other two now next, but we're going to stop here. The next lines, he's going to connect Kedem from the word etzem and Kedem from the word chezek. The other two is etzem, like a horn, like a bone, but it's like an etzem, an essential thing, and chezek from the point to power. But that's going to come afterwards. We'll learn that on Sunday.
It's interesting, the Rabbi Shab is so organized. He said 4 Perushim, and he ignored the first 3. He went in length in the 4th Perush, but now we see he didn't ignore.
Of course not. He's building up to it. But it's also interesting the way he built it. First, he wanted to explain Malchus's role as a corner to connect the existence with godliness. Then you could understand the elevation that comes through the other 3 interpretations: the light, the power, and the etzem and the chezek. He's going to now conclude. I'm going to stop here, but the Rabbi Shab is going to now conclude the whole section of Ayorim Kerem Mashiach that he began all the way on page 1299, and really the whole idea of Malchus, of transformation of the darkness into light. We'll finish that on Sunday. It'll be the bottom of this page, and all the way you'll see the new paragraph, where the paragraph ends on page 1306, and then he's going to go back and further explain the whole concept, which we'll get to when we learn that. So we'll stop here and close to the bottom of page 1305. Go ahead. Questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I understand that the Malchus de Asiya, the lowest level, is rooted in the Helam Atzmi. And you said that Malchus, this level, La Silaba, when we finish the Birurim, will reveal the Lakus of the Helam Atzmi. I understand that's what we just read. But the revelation is coming from Malchus, and maybe this is synonymous, or from the Nivraim, because I thought Malchus was Batul. How can it be Megale if it's Batul? I'm a little confused about that.
Why? Well, why can't Bittul be Megal? That's the ultimate Gili when something is completely Batul.
But what does it have?
Something that's higher than itself.
Okay, so it's basically serving as a channel.
Zah and Giluyim, they only reveal what they are. But Malchus, because it's Bittul, it can reveal something beyond structure, beyond any form of identity.
But I guess my question is, it's not revealing it from itself. It's channeling this higher level Elokus. It's like a channel. It's like but it's not coming from itself. It's because it's Batul, it's channeling this godly, the highest godly light.
The expression is that Malchus is rooted in this highest level.
And it is poil the Nivroim. That's the whole idea of Malchus, that it makes the Nivroim to have the Bittul.
I don't think it's just a channel. Malchus is rooted in Radlah, like he said in Malchus of Ein Sof, all the way to the highest levels. It's rooted.
Yeah, that's my question. That's exactly my question, the way you just said it. And I guess if it's rooted there, it must be Megala itself. If it's rooted there, it's Megala what it's rooted in.
It's not itself. There's only one God. You know, everything is coming from one God. The question is, each sphere reveals a different aspect of godliness. Malchus is revealing the aspect of the Atzmi, the Helam Atzmi, the level that's beyond revelation. The other spheres reveal the revelations of the divine. Every sphere has its role in revealing the divine. It's all about godliness. It's just a question which level it's revealing.
Okay, I think you clarified it. Thank you.
But
by the way, I sent you. Go ahead, Rabbi.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Yes, Yitzhak. I thought that's what we're going to be learning about Ein Od, that Malchus itself not just going to serve as a conduit for revelation of the Zah, but it's going to itself be revealed. The Helam Atzmi itself is going to be revealed as an ultimate source itself of incredible revelation from the Helam Atzmi. I thought that was what we're leading to.
I would phrase it I'd phrase it this way. When you talk about the spheres, whether it's Chochmah or Bina or Malchus, these are divine attributes. These are 10 ways God expresses himself. We learned at length how Malchus is different than the other 9. That it's Netzal, B'chinas Nekuda, just a point. And that even when it becomes built up, it's coming from the Malchus of each level. So we learned a fundamental difference, but they're all 10 instruments, so to speak, 10 attributes or 10 expressions of the divine. Malchus is the one, both in the spheres, but also is the one that descends, just like a neshama comes down below, like he said earlier. Malchus descends into Biyah to do the birurim. So if you want to really spell it out, you'd say like this. What Malchus is to the other spheres is the same idea as the lower worlds are to Atzilus. Malchus in the spheres is the lowest sphere that will connect to the lowest of worlds. Malchus is not Biyah. Malchus, however, relates to Biyah because it's the only level that will go all the way down and do the refinement. So when you're talking practically, we're in this world right now. Who's refining whom? We have a world. We eat, we sleep, we drink, we do business. We live in a world, a golus world of cheshach, kafel, mechuppah, a lot of darkness. A material world. The material world is not Malchus. The material world is the Yesh HaNivra, the Yesh HaGashmi VaChumri that God created. Malchus is the sphera that God uses to create something of this low level. That's because Malchus itself is also a state of darkness compared to the other spheres, because it conceals. The higher spheres, if they were the ones that created, the creation would not be so concealed. Malchus is a concealer. As a concealer, it's the perfect divine attribute to create. So it creates, but it also gives us the power to elevate and connect this material world. So the material world is not Malchus. The material world is a creation of God's. Malchus plays a key role. If you're looking at Geras HaKedesh 20, the Alter Rebbe explains this very, very specifically. Malchus is, for example, the power of growth in the earth. In the earth, you have the power of things to grow. So Malchus goes into the Eretz, into the Adama, into the earth, the power of things to grow. So basically, Malchus in the spheres is the sphere that relates most to the descent below in this world. So when we finish the Birurim and we refine this material world with the power of Malchus, what David HaMelech gives us the power. That's what a Melech is about. As I explained, the Melech is meant to give us the power and the bittul needed to refine a world that has no bittul. That's the point of a Melech, as I explained from Derech Mitzvah Secha, from Mitzvahs Minei Melech. So when that's done, then the world gets elevated, Malchus gets elevated, and you reveal the Helam Ha'atzmi where it's all rooted from in the first place.
Because Malchus is a channel for the Helam Ha'atzmi. Leis lemegar mo klum. So that means the
channel, tool, whatever you want to use, I think is more than a channel. It's actually like a sphere. It's a tool. I mean, it depends how you define sphere, but okay.
It's not a sphere like the other spheres that they have their own entity.
Anyway, I think I just explained it more in detail. That maybe was helpful.
It was helpful. It's still a little unclear whether it's the Yesh that's revealing the Helam Ha'atzmi as Derech Malchus, through Malchus, or is Malchus itself revealing Elokus, this Helam Ha'atzmi? It comes back to my question. It's not so simple.
I don't understand what you're saying. Malchus is a divine attribute. The physical world is not a divine attribute. It's a divine creation. So that's a distinction. Malchus is a sphere of Atzilus. This physical world is a creation of God's. Malchus is not the Nivra. Malchus is not a stone.
I understand.
It's not food.
I totally get it. I understand.
It's when you say, for example, that there's different levels of godliness. There's a level of godliness that manifests within existence. Memala kalam, Shem Elokim. God manifests is tailored to every piece of existence. There's a divine energy that is tailored and directly proportionate to that. That's the koyach eliki. It's like the neshama inside of a body. The body is not the neshama. Malchus is the divine energy that goes into this world. So there's two separate things here.
You've clarified. I think I understand. By the way, I texted you the cantillation note, Munat Segol. I'm wondering if that's what you were saying, where from Segel, where you have 2 dots above and 1 dot below, Segol is with 2 dots below and 1 dot above. And I'm wondering if that's what you're referring to when it's Hafuk.
Yitzhak,
where did you text it? Where did you text it? In Ayin Beis?
No, to you personally. I didn't want to post it in Ayin Beis until you said it's okay to post it.
What's that, Yitzhak? You're saying that there's a Nakuda with 2 dots below and 1 above? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, that's called skulosa.
Yeah, that's what I posted. I sent you the cantillation. It's a trope.
Oh,
It's
it's
a
trop,
trope,
but it's not a. It's a trop, but it's not an actual nakuda, is it?
That's
No,
what
it's
I'm asking, Rabbi. That's what I'm
Yeah, it
asking
is.
right
It
now.
is. It is.
There are no
Wow.
such nakuda.
What?
There's a segel with a nakuda on the bottom.
Yes,
There's
yes.
a segel that the nakuda is on top, like you
No,
posted.
Not actual. In the Indian, maybe there is such a thing, but not actual.
What Yitzchak, you can post it if you want. It's fine. I don't know where this is from.
You said earlier, Rabbi, that there's a few places in Torah where it's written with a segel with the dot above.
I'd have to look up. So did
don't-
you find that? Did anyone
No.
find an actual place where you see that?
That's what I'm asking.
No, it clearly, there's no question. There's 2 types of, one is a segel with a dot, 2
Below.
dots below and the dot below, and one is a segel with 2 dots and the dot above. Like you posted, correct.
I just posted both of them to the Ayin Beis thread so people can compare. This is
Wow.
going back
Okay.
to the beginning of this year today. So I just
Okay.
posted it so people can see what he's saying.
Yeah, this is correct. The source for it is a Zohar, and I gave the source. And Samach Tzedek talks about it,
Wow.
and it talks about it here. Yeah.
But that's a trop. Is it also? Is it? I mean, I don't know, but is it also? You're saying it's also the Zohar says that's a nakuda. I've never seen it anyone. They list the nakudas, the choilim and the segul and seirei. I've never seen this one ever
Well, you
listed.
haven't seen it, so it doesn't mean it doesn't
No, okay,
exist.
so it is, but it is.
It's
Right?
very interesting. I see what you sent. But
Yes,
what's
I
the
do too.
source- What's the source to that? Sgoil, not segoil.
Here he calls it skulosa. In the Zohar, it's segel and skulosa. Let me just stop the recording here. So we're at the bottom of page 13.